So here are probably the coolest looking ruins here in Wrightsville. It's where I am today. Just downriver of the Wrightsville Columbia Bridge. And we're looking at the old canal here. Because there's something specific I want to show you guys that I think is kind of cool. Let's go down there. As far as I know, I think this canal was built around 1850. What I always liked about this spot is that you can see the bridge, let's say circa 1920 maybe, and then you can see the stonework ruins of the canal circa built 1850, all in one. Literally, you can take a picture. I think I did at one point. I took a series of pictures that had both of them in the frame. You can see this is curved, and then this would have led directly into here, so the canal would have went that way. And you do see some of these curved areas at other locations, but I think this is really maybe one of the better curved portions. This looks like sandstone, right? So the canal would have been here, or the water would have been maybe, well, I don't know where the water would have been. It would have varied. So what I wanted to show you is over here. Now I have been to a lot of these locations, like I've said, and I've seen a lot of them. One thing that I don't really see that much of, occasionally you see a spike or a piece of old plank, or a metal, a metal something or other. But it's not very common. Down here though, I found some cool things that I hadn't known were here, and I've been to this site a lot. Let's go down there and check it out. So we're down at water level now. There's the big bridge, and we're gonna go over here. I once did a video directly across the river here. I did a couple videos in what I call the Franken Tunnel, which is this really interesting tunnel right there next to the bridge on the other side. And in one of those videos, I did a short underwater sequence in the scour pool that is right at the base of this iron tube that comes it comes out from underneath where the trains are. And when I got home and I was editing the video, I realized I saw there was this big iron ring underwater, kind of half buried, or at least I remember it looking. I can go back and check the footage now and make sure I'm not imagining things. I knew that section, that creek leading up to the tunnel, I knew that used to be part of the canal system, but it had been kind of built over the years. So, and I didn't see the ring while I was filming. I thought, man, that's really cool. There's a ring, I guess, canal boats or boats used to tie themselves up. And it's still there. And then I thought, wow, well, if it's that's a fishing boat. Somebody's erected a little seat here. I would imagine this spot here is also popular for fishing. The river seems like it's a little bit up. So anyway, I thought, wow, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna grab that, and if it's not permanently attached to the old wall of the canal, and it's just there, maybe it's attached to one block, I'm just gonna take it as an artifact. What a cool artifact, right? So the next time I was there, which wasn't that much later, I looked and there was nothing there. So either somebody watched my video, went and snagged it, or it was covered up. But I always thought it was interesting that it was like this big metal ring. It was an artifact of the canal days, but it was metal, and I didn't see a lot of it. So maybe a couple months ago, I was coming across the bridge here, right here. I was on foot. I had walked out there, I think, to get a picture of something, and I looked down here and I saw this wall, and I said, oh, that must be the river side of the canal, the old canal wall, right? So the river would have been here and the canal would have been on the other side. There are so many ruins hidden in the woods around this area that, you can really be a place many times and still not see everything. And what I noticed was, looking up from there, was at the bottom of the wall were these huge undercuts. And I was like, oh, so I went to check it out, and yes, these things have been eroded. So the river comes down here. Some of these facing blocks, or whatever you call them, managed to be pried loose, and now the river, every time the river floods, it comes in here and it scours out all this area. You see this? Look at that. I mean, we're looking up into the belly of the canal wall, of a big, thick canal wall, right? What's unfortunate is that over time, you know, this is going to keep getting scoured out, and eventually this section of the wall is going to come crumbling down, right? And then that's going to get slowly broken up, worn away. You know, next thing you know, this whole wall, which is quite large and intact to a large degree, could be gone. There's the bridge. Here's the other undercut, which is even deeper, right? And you can look up inside there. See that rubble? That's the original rubble from when they built the canal back in the 1850s. Looking up into it, because again, this portion of the wall has been swept away, and now the water's scoop, 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 and undermining structurally. So this part, there's a good chance that this part will eventually, boom, fall away too. The other thing that I noticed that I thought was really neat was there were these iron tie-off rings, just like the ones I had seen over there when I was shooting the tunnel video, and I'm thinking that somebody had to kind of scoop me on a potential artifact. These are still in the wall, right? And there's 3 of them. Here's a big one, right? It's probably 5 inches in diameter. This one's in through an eye hole spike. It's jammed into the wall. This one is just a smaller version, right? But it's actually jammed into the wall much better. And that one, right? It's a smaller. But the coolest one of all, I think, in my book, is this one. Now, I don't know why I think this one is cooler. I just think that to me, this looks like it's maybe an oval shape, but it's imperfect. So this one looks like it might have been made by hand, and the other ones were already being made by some type of automated process. I mean, I don't know. If you know a lot about 1850s iron industry, and at what time did they really start making stuff that was just perfect in terms of the way each one looked exactly the same, right? This one to me looks kind of bent, so I don't know if it was made that way or if it's just more of a hand fashion one. But I mean, it's in there. Look at that. I can put all my weight on it. You know, no worries about falling, and it's here all that time later, right? What I think is really neat about the whole thing is that because the canal was built before the Civil War, basically means that in 1863, right, in the summer, in July, it was July, maybe July 2nd, July 1st or July 2nd, just a day or two before Gettysburg, when the Confederate troops were here, and they had the whole thing, and there was the burning of the bridge, right? If you don't know about that, check that out. The burning of the Wrightsville Columbia Bridge. You could have been sitting right here, because this wall would have been here. I mean, it would have looked better, and there would have been a whole canal works, right? And you could have been looking right over there, and you could have watched that bridge burn, because those right there, those are the piers that the covered bridge used to sit on. It was a mile long, and it went from Wrightsville to Columbia, and that's the bridge that burned. That I'm pretty sure Union engineers tried to blow it up, it didn't work, and then they just started burning it. But I can sit on these ruins, and I can look at those ruins, and I can imagine myself going back in time and watching the events of that day unfold. Now, I probably, in reality, I wouldn't have been sitting here, because there might have been I think there was a little bit of, action, a little bit of a gunfight. And then there would have been an explosion. And then nothing would have happened for a while. And then they would have started burning, and then the Union would have started burning the timbers. And it took 6 hours for that sucker to burn. Now, I've been here before. I've talked about this before. I do have an episode called Wrightsville Ruins, which is a much earlier episode where I talk about that as well. So you go check that out. But I didn't really know about this wall when I did that. I mean, I knew there was a trail I didn't realize the wall was down there. I wanted to show you this place because I think it's really neat. It's on a nice day next to the river. It's a cool place to come because it has that kind of romantic feeling of ruins, right? The romance of ruins. Why are people so attracted to ruins? Really stone ruins, but also abandoned places too, right? Why is that? What is it with the romance of ruins, right? But this got me thinking about another place not far from here that I've known about now for a couple years, and it does have to do with the canal. I've never shown it before. I think on my old Instagram feed I might have had a couple pictures of it, but I'm not sure. But it's basically a piece of canal architecture that is pretty interesting, pretty unique. I think it's the only one I know of, at least in that shape. But it's hidden. It's somewhat hidden from the general, you know, the general view of the area. And that got me to thinking about this whole idea that in this area there's just layer upon layer upon layer, especially in the industrial ruins of this area. There's just, so you can have a whole layer of stuff, so you can dig down or you can find an opening below the surface and you're into a whole new time era, right? And that's what kind of this next stop on our trip is going to be. I don't think anybody's seen it on YouTube. I don't think anybody's filmed it on YouTube, although I'm not sure. It's not hard to get to, but it's kind of an interesting feature, and it's hidden, and it ties right in with the canal. And I've been thinking about this place for a while. I've wanted to share it, and today just seems like the perfect day to do it. Okay, so right here, we're gonna pack up. We're gonna leave Wrightsville. We're gonna go over the mighty Susquehanna, and we're gonna go up to the Falmouth boat launch. All right, let's go get the car. Let's get going. All right. We are here. We are at the Falmouth boat launch, and I am looking at the parking lot where people come to get onto their bikes to travel up and down the beautiful northwestern Lancaster County River Trail, which if you've never been there, check it out. It's really cool. So I'm here. I checked out where we're going, and I'm a little bit torn. I'm not sure what to do. The river's high. It's backed up. The feature I want to look at is kind of has more water in it than usual and junk in it. So my idea was I wanted to go up into this thing, and then there was something at the end of it that I really wanted to get close to see, to touch, literally to touch history, to touch the face of history. Right? But not to be dramatic, but I don't think I can do that today because there's too much going up in there. So we could go there and I could set things up. I could kind of do it from the entrance. It's basically a tunnel, and a short tunnel. At the end of this tunnel is what we want to look at. So we could set up at the entrance, and I do have some lights, and we could see if we could illuminate that sucker and then zoom in. But I don't know if I want to do that because I think it would be more dramatic to crawl up this tunnel and get all wet and muddy and be, you know what I mean? Because that would make for a better video rather than just, you know. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off on that. Remember, this thing was triggered by when I found those iron rings down there, and it's a neat feature, and it's truly hidden history, I think. And but conditions are not optimum, so let's go do something else here to make up for it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you over to the double lock ruins here. I don't think I've ever really done a proper video there of the ruins, but I'm going to go over there and I'm going to give you my 4 points of why people like ruins, the romance of ruins. What are the 4 reasons why ruins seem to be so attractive to humans across the world? Because it's a really, to me, it's a real phenomenon. The romance of ruins. What is that? And we'll talk about that with the backdrop of these really cool double lock ruins, all right? Let's go check it out. So here we are at the double lock at Falmouth boat launch. The boat launch is right over there, and there's some type of, I don't know, storehouse right there, and the trail, the riverhead, the river trail leads off down that way. And in this still shot, you can see one side of the old double lock. And this whole area here is one big ruin. But what I wanted to talk about right now were the 4 things that lead to this long-standing human fascination with ruins. Number 1 is visual, right? Look at the ruins. Look at the blocks. There's something appealing about the way these things age. There's something appealing about the way they look, how the sharp corners are rounded off, how the colors change, how the layers of vegetative growth over the years begin to consume them. Visually, these things are just extremely interesting to look at. And your eye gets kind of seduced by this strange but captivating mixture of old and nature. Usually it's old stuff, old bricks, old rocks, old stonework, really, and nature, and how the two, over time, the two interplay, and they're not necessarily at war with each other, because ultimately we know that nature's going to win, and even the blocks themselves are just an extension of nature that's been worked by man. So it's really all nature, but it's man kind of projected on the nature, and then that projected up against raw nature, and the two, the way they mix, it just looks very cool. Number 2 is the emotional response. Ruins have the ability to evoke, in some people, in a lot of people, I think, a very powerful emotional response, because when you take, oh, there's a cardinal. When you take the visual aspect, the visual seduction that happens to you, and then you think about the ideas that come into your head, or you start to have feelings and ideas based upon the way it looks, and it can trigger certain emotions, because inevitably what you're looking at is the march of time. It is a visual reality, a visual truth-telling that time marches on and nothing really lasts. Nothing. Certainly not, our bodies, certainly not biological organisms. Stuff like this lasts for longer, and it's much more slowly worn down, which I think gives us a taste of more time going by without actually having to live it ourselves. In other words, we may only live 70, 80 years. This thing has been here for 150, 160 already, maybe more. They evoke these emotions by kind of slowing down time. Yeah, so ruins have a way of just evoking emotions, whether it could be sad, it could be lonely, it could be mysterious, it could be awe, you know what I mean? It could be a frustration. I mean, who knows? I mean, you look at these things and you wonder, what happened? Why did all these things fail? Why does it seem like every civilization has its ruins, and it just you can see the failure of these civilizations, right? In this case, it wasn't necessarily a failure as it was the invention of a new and much more efficient and just a better way to transport in the eyes of the world back then, and that were the trains. The trains came along and pretty much made this kind of stuff unnecessary. So 2 is emotion. 3 is the intellectual, right? Not only when you look at it are you seduced, and not only does that seduction then evoke certain emotions within a person, a feeling person. If you're a thinking and feeling person, you're also going to get thoughts. You're going to be like, hey, Who built this? What year was it? What did it do? What the ships that came through, what are they called? Oh, arcs. What did they carry? A lot of coal, right? A lot of coal came down this canal for many, many years from the anthracite regions up the river, came down here, down to Colombia. You know, who owned this places? How did it get built? How long did it last? How long, you know, why didn't they build it over there? You know, and who owns it now? That kind of thing. So the third thing is that the ruins, at least in my experience, are very good at evoking ideas and questions, intellectual type of imaginations about what's going on here. You know, it's just abandoned. What is it? I mean, you come here, you don't know what anything is. You come here, the first thing you think is, what is this? What went on here? You know, is this some type of primitive, you know, ball court like they have down in South America, or sorry, Central America? Could be a lot of things. I mean, you can look at any ruins and be like, you can make stories up around ruins very easily because of these power. So the third thing is that they are intellectually stimulating. They stimulate your brain. If you're into history, it gets you thinking about what happened. What happened during the years of operation when this thing was up and running and it wasn't a ruin? What stories could be told right here, right? They probably loaded and unloaded stuff right here. Like, think of all the years and all the people that worked here and all the accidents that probably happened, right? And all the storms and history. This place was here, again, like I said before, in the Civil War. This was here in the Civil War too. It's the same canal, basically. Although the one we just saw was Susquehanna Tidewater. This was, I think this was called the main line, yeah. And then you go down the rabbit hole of reading about it, studying it, and that's all an intellectual, it's all intellectual pleasure. So you get the visual, you get the emotional, you get the intellectual, and the fourth one, for me, is maybe not completely necessary, but I kind of think of it as an extra layer, and that's the spiritual, because when you take all those things together, you start mingling the intellectual with the visual with the emotional with the intellectual, and you start wrapping it all up into a big ball of wax. And as a package, I think personally, another reason why ruins are so evocative and they hold such a power over the imagination of you know, most thinking and feeling humans, right? I know they do me, and everybody I've ever met in my life, I think pretty much would be like, wow, let's check out these ruins, right? And that's it all becomes a spiritual thing, because it just speaks to the impermanence of most things. It speaks to the impermanence, certainly, of the physical world. Something like this, which is really hard to slowly get rid of, but it also speaks to the impermanence of the human being, of a human experience, and how I'm here, blah, 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 about this right now. 150 years ago, there was an ark here, there were people unloading, right? There were animals, probably smelled like manure. You know, it was the noises, you could hear the gate. I mean, it would have been a hustling and a bustling if I got here, you know, at the right time. And now look at it. And now look at me. What am I doing here? So it gives you this broad view. It gives you the long view, or the view from 40,000 feet, as some people say. And when you get that view, and those first three are coming in and they're integrated or mixing with each other, that can't help but prompt deeper questions in, again, the thinking and feeling person, which I think is most people. Deeper questions, you know, meaning of life, what happens after you die, all that stuff. And that is really in the spiritual realm. So I think those are the four main things: visual, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. And they kind of build upon each other, combine, kind of culminate. That's why when you go somewhere and you see an old stone wall, you're like, you know, what is that? And why was that there? It's just, that's what I think is really the key to all this, and is why people love ruins, all right? I am sorry we were not able to look at the exact feature that I was talking about when we were down in Wrightsville. Conditions are just not right. Like I said, I want to do it right, and doing it right with that one means get down in that water, get muddy, crawl up in there, and then light that thing up from the inside, get real close. Because I know what's there, I think it'll be cool, and it keeps going where I don't know what's there. So we could actually discover something new beyond what I'm already talking about, right? But I tried to make it up to you with this kind of a quick tour here of the double lock ruins here at Falmouth Boat Launch. A lot of people don't even know they're here. They're kind of neglected. It's kind of like a double ruin because you have the original ruins, and at some point, maybe in the 60s or the 70s, they put these handrails up, and then there's they put benches here, and I think this used to be part of the trail, but then I guess the trail kind of moved a little bit closer to the river. So now this has been doubly abandoned. How tragic is that? All right, but if you had a good time, make sure you hit subscribe, ring my bell, follow me on all the platforms, share me on all the socials, all right? This is Brett for TopoRanger. I had a good time, and I hope you did too. I'll see you next time.